the first ever witness protection program in Tennessee, and some people here in the Mid-South are hoping this might actually curb crime.
Yeah. Fox 13's Daniel Wilkerson joins us live from downtown. Daniel, very often people who want to speak up after a crime fear retaliation, and they don't want to be labeled a snitch.
That is right. You know, they say in most of these cases, there are people out there who have information that would help solve these cases. They hope that this program will offer the protection that will make it more people will be more willing to talk.
Gun violence leading to a skyrocketing murder rate is the motivation behind the first ever witness protection program in Tennessee.
I had an 8-year-old girl whose family member of this church standing in her mother's kitchen and dropped dead, shot by a stray bullet.
That's Dr. Bill Atkins, pastor of Greater Amani Church, whose congregation jump-started the new program with a $10,000 donation. District Attorney Amy Wyrick explains how the program will work.
So in the immediacy of a crime being committed at 2 o'clock in the morning, when somebody has witnessed a crime and because of the facts and circumstances, that person may need to get to a hotel that night, right? So that's an expense right there.
She says the funds will be used to protect those who agree to testify in trials, providing hotels or housing. Dr. Atkins admits there are more long-term solutions which need attention to put a serious dent in crime, but he hopes this is a start.
Memphis right now is one of the worst places in America to live, according to numerous publications, that we're one of the most dangerous cities in America, and we don't want that. Look what happened on Beale Street the other night. We don't want that. We don't need that as part of the city. But we've got to become fed up enough with all of this violence that we move. That's what got me started in this. I'm just a pastor in the city and got a normal guy. But I got so fed up with what I was seeing happening that I just thought I needed to do something.
In addition to Dr. Atkins' church donating that $10,000, we should mention that the Shelby County Crime Commission has donated $150,000 towards this program. Reporting live in Memphis, Daniel Wilkerson, Fox 13 News.